Located in the north of the Atlantic Ocean is an archipelago called the Faroe Islands. Known for its beautiful nature, dramatic landscapes, and thousands of birds. These islands are home to 55,000 people and 70,000 sheep. Here we spent 5 days traveling around the islands, and I want to show some of the highlights of our trip. On the first day, we took a morning flight from Copenhagen to the main airport on the Faroe Islands and rented a car and drove to the lake above the ocean, which is almost right next to the airport. We began our hike in the town of Vágar. The trail was around 3 kilometers one way and ended by the Slaves Cliff. It was called this because during the Viking ages, slaves would be pushed over the cliff into the ocean here. We saw lots of birds and actually some puffins by the cliffs. We walked up to the top of the cliff and then down to the small waterfall. It was really cool to see a lake situated above the water with dramatic cliffs. The best pictures are probably taken by plane, but I managed to get some. Then we sat and waited for my mom and her friend who were a bit slower, but we took the opportunity to just sit and enjoy the nice view and weather. On the second day, we still had our rental car and my mom and her friend drove us to this town called Hvalvík, where we would embark on a hike across the mountains to Vestmanna, where they would then pick us up. We picked up this hiking guide at the airport, which is a small book filled with hikes varying in distance and level, and our hike was 10 kilometers and medium difficulty. The hike started with a steep uphill where we would follow these blue short sticks in the ground that would lead us the way. We were glad that the weather was cloudy 11 degrees or we would have been sweating. Once we made it on top of the mountain, we were met with an incredible view over the valley and town. This would be the last sight of civilization in a while. Here we enjoyed some lunch and then continued our journey. Initially, we started walking the wrong way because we continued to follow these blue sticks, but we were supposed to start following the electrical lines and cairns, so we ended up walking a bit wrong as we had to cross the valley. Luckily, I read in the text in the guide about this, so I remembered. Otherwise, we would have walked to another town. We continued the hike along the valley, meeting more sheep along the way who were also very talkative. The path was not entirely clear and was hard to know which way to follow, so we more or less had to follow our instincts and read the text in the hiking guide. We then got to this road that we followed until the dam, where we were given a choice to cross it or continue on the same side, and we decided to cross it. We didn't realize in the beginning, but we didn't follow the path and ended up on the side with a really steep hill. It looked as though there was a path that we were following, but the more we started walking, the less convinced we were that it actually was a path. So we ended up crossing down the hill and up on the other side. This ended up being a really great decision because the side we were on originally got incredibly steep and we would not have been able to walk there. Finally, we could see the town of Vestmanna, which was just beautiful. Again, we were not sure where to walk, but ended up finding our way down anyways. After we were picked up, we drove to this lookout point with such a nice view. The third day was the most exciting day, which was the tour out to the island of Mykines, which is the most western island of the Faroe Islands. Here, over 500,000 puffins come to nest during the summer, along with hundreds of thousands of other birds as well, including the guillemot, which is considered to be the penguin of the Arctic. We started by taking a boat from Vágar to the town of Mykines. We drove by some epic landscapes, big rocks in the ocean that have been completely pooed on by the birds. The village was very small. If I remember correctly, only around 10 people lived there permanently throughout the whole year. We then started our hike to the north of the island through long grassy fields of sheep. Little did we know we would get to the most epic view in just a short while. We met a Brazilian friend on the tour who was kind of obsessed with Sweden. He wore a Swedish t-shirt and was extremely interested in Norse mythology. We were actually the first Swedish people he had ever met, and anyways, he took pictures of everything. Here we stopped and ate some lunch. We continued our walk to one of the most incredible views I've ever seen. After this point is when we started to see some puffins that were in their burrows and on the side of the cliffs in the grass. They would sit there and guard their nests and then go out and catch fish in the ocean to bring back. We later ventured on to the main nesting place of the puffins, where there were thousands of puffins flying all over the place and sitting by their nests. We were able to get really close to them, 1 to 2 meters. They weren't afraid of people at all. I bet they're really used to people coming and looking at them. They were very curious. On our 4th day, we did a tour around the main islands of Vágar, Streymoy, and Esturoy. We were extremely lucky with the weather, and it was blue skies with no wind almost the entire day. The morning was filled with winding roads, and our second stop was the most northern town on Esturoy called Jov, where you could see the James Bond island in the background. We continued on listening to stories from our local guide, and the next town that we stopped at was Eid. After that, we get to Turnvik. Here, bones from the Viking Age have been found, and there was a small Viking graveyard. During the winter months, this village does not get any sunlight at all due to the tall mountains surrounding the village. It is also a popular surfing spot during this time of year. In the afternoon, the clouds became low and it started to drizzle while we were in the village of Saksun, which is mainly just a church and some sheep. We then drove to a very isolated village called Gassadalur, which had only recently been connected to the world by a tunnel through the mountain. Before that, people climbed over the mountain to get to the next village. You can see on the side of the mountain the zigzag lines, which the path that the postman used to deliver mail. This town also had a very cool waterfall. We ended the tour with a view over the country's prison, where they only had 5 inmates, as well as a view over Kaldbaksbotnur. On the last day, we mainly walked around Tórshavn, the old town and the government buildings, as well as the harbor.